Great. I think we're live. All right. Welcome, 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 everyone, to our Tuesday live. Let me make sure that this is working here. Live from, actually, live from Austin, Texas. And, and I'm so grateful for you. Welcome to Paradigm Shifters. And this was an idea, divine loaded idea, 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago of the shift that we're all experiencing now. This shift. And it's been my pleasure to introduce you different speakers each week. And today we have Chalres West. Well, before we get going, I want to tell you where we are right now. We are at 95 members in this group. Isn't that cool? And right now, from 7 different countries globally, from 20 states in the United States. And as I put it out there, what is something you're currently facing? What is a shift? And they're shifting in so many different things, and addictions coming up, you know, where we're fighting it, where we're staying stuck, and all kinds of things. So it's my pleasure to introduce you today to Chalres West. Now, I first met Chalres in Los Angeles. He's from New York. And I met him I just want to tell you one little, Chalres, you might not remember this, but I met you a long time ago, but the moment in time that I will always remember you is we were getting ready for some kind of event, you know, some kind of training, and you were sitting there intently speaking to someone at a table in the restaurant. And I was walking by looking for all my buddies, and I noticed your energy. And I wanted to be around that energy. And so I kind of sat there. I wanted to eavesdrop, but I couldn't hear what you were saying. It was the energy and the intentness that you were speaking eye to eye, heart to heart with this person. And I thought, this is the energy that I would love to stay in 24/7. So with that, my friend Chalres West from Libertyville, Illinois. I didn't know that.
Originally, that's where I was raised, yes.
Yes, and now your home is in Brooklyn, New York. Yes.
Yeah.
Chalres made his Broadway debut in 1992, and you've maintained a solid career and reputation as a leading man in whatever field you bring. Your talent, skills, poise, intuition, and charisma. Now, Chalres specializes in the areas of releasing anxiety, depression and stress, transcending trauma and PTSD, alcoholism and addiction, building fulfilling relationships, cultivating a strong sense of self-love and confidence and emotional resilience. Now, Chalres created the Divine Spark 3 and 6 months hypno coaching programs, which supports his clients in releasing, rewiring, and rebuilding the structure of their subconscious thought patterns while providing trainings, exercises, instruction, and insight at the conscious level. Now, I love this part. Chalres was hired by hip hop R&B songwriter singer Tyler Parks as the mindset coach for her new music industry workshop, Burnout. I love it. I think I met you like right before when you were working on that, to support singers and songwriters from falling into emotional and creative burnout. And that's where he facilitated his 90-minute workshop, In the Flow. So Chalres has a diverse international client list that runs from the spectrum from business leaders to religious leaders, from Broadway performers to an Emmy nominated TV producer, and the president of Janet Jackson's Enterprises. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Charles. And what I would love is like a little bit about your background and possibly a tool that you could offer. And hang in there, everyone. I'm not hang in there. Go get this. I'm taking notes. And there will be homework. Because inspiration without action is merely entertainment, right? So there will be homework. Take notes. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Charles. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Judy. I love you. Thank you so much. And it touches me deeply when you shared about you eavesdropping on my conversation and what you witnessed. That that touches me deeply. And thank you so much for that. And I receive it. I'm grateful and blessed to be here. Welcome to anyone and everyone who may be watching and listening in. As Judy said, I'm originally from the Chicago area, and I knew as a very young kid that I had musical talent. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and we all grew up singing. We all grew up singing at the church, singing at church camp. Anytime we'd go for long rides in the car, we were always singing. And I just always knew, ever since I was about 6 or 7 years of age, that I'm here to sing and to make music and to perform and to touch people, to reach people in that way. And yes, I did that through, in the Chicago area. I moved to Nashville for a couple of years in my mid-20s, and I did it there. And then in my late 20s, I was compelled to move to New York City. And yeah, I moved to New York, and 3 months later, I was on Broadway making my debut. And within 6 years, I was in my 3rd Broadway show, 35 years of age, on a billboard in Times Square, representing the show that I was in. Now, but the thing is that here I was at the age of 35, living the life that I had not only dreamed of, but felt that I was called to pursue. And it looked like everything on the outside that I had it all going on. I was at the height of success. Can any of you out there relate to that? You've worked really hard, you've achieved, what looks like success. Well, but the reality was, inside, I was suffering. And I didn't understand that at that same time that everything looked so great on the outside, I was still a wounded little 5 or 6-year-old boy on the inside. And I didn't understand that that's what was going on. That disconnection and that contrast led me to suffer. I was really suffering because I had to keep up the performances. I had to keep up the look and all of that. I couldn't let anyone, and especially myself, know what was really going on inside of me. And so then a couple years after that, I had been living in Lower Manhattan, and a couple years after that, 9/11 happened, and I witnessed the Second World Trade Tower collapse through my bedroom window. And I had no tools at all, no tools for anything. And I drank. I absorbed all the energy, all the trauma that was happening around me. I didn't know how to do anything else. There was mayhem and catastrophe everywhere. And it's kind of like what's happening now in certain ways, but not what's happening with COVID. I almost feel like, well, I went through 9/11. I know I have tools now. And so during the course of this call right now, I'm going to share some tools that I've been using. So now, a shift can only happen when we can understand where we're stuck or how we're stuck. What is it that keeps us stuck? And for me, I identified that a lot of the things that were keeping me stuck as a 35-year-old man, looking like I was living the height of success, were messages that I received in the church that I was raised in as a little 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy sitting in the church, and the preacher's up in the pulpit telling everybody that God is a vengeful, punishing God, and you're all born into original sin, and you're an abomination, and lots of other things as well. My little 5-6-year-old consciousness absorbed all of that and believed it to be true. Then when I was 10 years old, I began getting bullied and chased home from school and spat upon. And that confirmed in my subconscious mind, see, Charles, see what the preacher told you about you being an abomination? See, you are, because these kids are making it, are showing that to you. And then I can look back on different episodes from my life and realize, wow, they're all connected. How I processed the trauma, the challenge, the emotional challenges now of the pandemic. Now I am deeply rooted in solution. Now I am deeply rooted in the tools that I have in what I call my spiritual toolbox. And so I can go through the course of my day, and whatever it is that's going on, especially living in New York City, where especially in the months of March, April, May, and June were tremendously painful, tremendously difficult. And yet at the same time, I was thriving. I found a way, I was able to find a way by using my tools to thrive. So I'm going to share with you all a couple of simple little in the moment tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some tools with you that you can do in the moment. And I know that, taking breath is one, and I know you've already covered that. This is something that I do because, Judy, let me ask you, or all of you, let me ask you, when you say, if I'm stressed or I'm feeling anxious and I'm worried, if you were to point to somewhere in your body, where would you generally say that feeling is?
Well, I know for me, it's right here in my heart. And it almost feels like it's stopped and it aches. It really hurts. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people say that, and I see some heads nodding as well. I know for myself and a lot of people that I work with, it actually originates in the mind. It originates in the stress and the worry and the anxiety creates a tightness in the mind. So I have a couple of little exercises. You could call them prayers. You can call them tools. If you speak of God, if you have a connection with God or universe, infinite intelligence, you can add those words in the front of this. This is what I do. I close my eyes. I place both of my hands on my heart chakra. I take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, I say either out loud or to myself, out of my head into my heart. I breathe in again. And on the exhale, out of my head into my heart. And again, keep it rolling. Out of my head into my heart. Just keep going doing that. Out of my head into my heart. Out of my head into my heart. Yes. Out of my head into my heart. And then I can just keep that going. And then here's another one. Keep your hands on your heart chakra. Breathe in, take a nice inhale. On the exhale, it's guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. Yeah. Deep breath in. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. And you want to just keep doing this, filling your lungs up with air, filling your heart up with love. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. And then you can rotate them out of my head into my heart. Dear God, guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. Yeah, and then I just notice what I'm noticing. Metacognition, the thought behind the thought, the feeling behind the feeling. And I notice and I can increase that presence of the connection between the mind and the heart. Because what ends up happening scientifically, and this is the really cool, I'm very, very spiritually connected, but also I love the science of it as well. What ends up happening when we get into a place of worry, stress, or anxiety, fear, and doubt, is that we tend to live from the neck up. We can sometimes have broken hearts. You know, a lot of the things that have been happening around the world can break our heart. But what ends up happening is the mind-heart connection becomes stagnated. It becomes fragmented, right? Does that make sense? It can become stagnated, yeah. So doing the out of my head into my heart, what that does is it opens up that channel. It opens up that vibrational channel so that there is a flow. There's a flow, there's a connection. So you can just notice the increased feeling in the presence of calm. And then whenever you feel like, yeah, there's no set number of times that I do this. Sometimes it's 30 seconds, sometimes it's a couple minutes. I don't really even keep track. Then I always finish it off with this. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. Deep breath in, and on the exhale, thank you 7 times. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just let that gratitude roll off your tongue. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What I do, I call that thank you times 7. So it's 7 thank yous on the exhale, because even if we've only shifted and released even just a little bit, and we can say thank you for that, well, then what does that mean? That means we can increase that as we continue to develop that emotional resilience and what I call spiritual muscles. So what I've been doing for the past, consciously, I have been doing this for the last 14 years, is I have been building spiritual muscles. So now, those first few heart chakra exercises I gave you are in the moment things that you can do, give to yourself. And I can pretty much guarantee and promise you that as you just simply add this to your self-care regime throughout your day, a minute here and a minute there, and then at the end of each day, at the end of every single day, when I lay down, I put my hand, one hand or both hands on my heart, and I finish every single day like this. Dear God, how did I do today? Or universe, infinite intelligence, or just, how did I do today? Because when you can just put it out there, you just, how did I do today? How did I do today? How did I do today? When I started doing this 14, 15 years ago, I didn't hear or receive a response at first, but there was something within me that told me to keep it up and to stay with it and to keep doing it. And one night, you guys, I was blown away because I was lying there in my bed by myself, lying there. This is maybe 13 years ago. So I did it almost a year without really receiving a response. And I kept on going. And I said, how did I do today, God? God, how did I do today? And I heard something and I felt something. It said, well, Charles, you made your bed today. You went to a meeting, you stayed sober. You ate really well. You held the door for that lady. You were on time. You went to the gym. You worked out. You made yourself a nice dinner. You had a protein shake that you carried with you in your backpack. You did really well. And when you were on the subway, you criticized that young lady in your thoughts, and you were 15 minutes late for that one appointment. So this was not like an opportunity for me to beat myself up and feel bad about that. All it was a really beautiful little way of having a little inventory of where I can do better tomorrow. And so I noticed also what the message told me was that I judged someone harshly in my thoughts. I didn't speak the words. I didn't even say the words out loud. But if I judge someone harshly with my thoughts, it's still harmful. It's still harmful. Energetically, as to me as well. It's harmful to us. It's harmful to me. So those are the spot checks that I want to offer to you. Now, there is a bigger there's a bigger tool that you're all going to want to put in your spiritual toolbox.
Wow.
So Judy, you've used an ATM machine before, correct?
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So when you go to a bank or a drive-through ATM, why do you go there?
to get cash.
To get cash. So what is it that you do that makes it possible to receive cash?
Oh, I have a deposit into an account.
So you have to make deposits first.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes.
Oh, so you can't just go to the ATM. You can't just go there and stick your card in if you haven't been making deposits.
No, I need this.
Exactly. Yes. But what we humans tend to we have forgotten or we're never taught is that we want to make withdrawals
Oh,
without ever really noticing if we've made deposits. So, what if I had told you that for the last 14 years or so, I have been consciously using a totally different type of ATM machine that gives me a type of currency that is actually far more valuable than this green. And it's something that I call the spiritual ATM.
Oh my gosh, that is so great. Everybody, I'm just going to pause here, write this one down, all right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that you need, you would love to teach your children. Go ahead. Yes. Yeah. What did you call it? Your
spiritual ATM.
Okay, good.
And so I have consciously been I came up with this idea about 14 years ago, and I started doing it on a notepad. And at the top of I had a little leather-bound notepad, and it was spiritual ATM. And what I did, and I played around with it for a while, and I fine-tuned it over the years. And so, just like in an ATM, in a regular bank ATM, you're able to make withdrawals based upon what you've deposited into your accounts, right? Now, in the spiritual ATM, it uses that exact same principle, but with acts of kindness, acts of love, acts of service, acts of eating well. I mean, seriously, every single demonstration of self-care. Before we started this call, we prayed together. Mm-hmm. Ching, that's deposits in the ATM. This call, the fact that we are all right here, right now, that's a substantial. Ching, ching, we can all make some solid deposits into our spiritual ATM.
And I would like to add too, there's hundreds of people that will be watching this on the recording. And imagine that ripple effect. And I want to also put this out that this is all going to be recorded. You can share this with anyone. And imagine you're sitting in New York City depositing into our accounts.
Yeah.
And
interest. Beautiful?
Yes, I love it.
So you just said the word interest. So that is another aspect of the spiritual ATM that is amazing. So just like in a regular bank account, it generates interest, a certain percentage of interest. Now the spiritual ATM generates interest as well, but it has a different form of currency. And the currency is in forms of faith. The currency is in forms of trust. The currency is in forms of a presence of confidence and inner awareness that now I'm going to share a very, very personal story with you right now where I was put to the test to demonstrate what I had been putting into my spiritual ATM. Now, Judy, I know that you know about this part of my story, and that it was actually this time 4 years ago. I had a simple little stumble, and I developed a hernia in the right side of my groin. I'd never had anything like that before, but I'm a very active man. I take really good care of my body, and I knew exactly what had happened. I called my auntie who lives in Birmingham, who's a retired doctor, and I explained to her what happened. And she's like, "Yes, honey, that sounds like a hernia. Just go to the hospital. They'll get it taken care of." I went to the nearby hospital. The chief of surgery comes out and examines me. And he says, "Oh, Mr. West, this is a piece of cake. You're in such great shape. No problem at all. Oh, I have an opening in 3 days. So come in, we'll get it taken care of." 3 days later, I'm lying on the operating table. And lo and behold, they ended up having to abort the hernia repair because when they entered my navel with a laparoscopic camera, he then told me later, after I was brought out of anesthesia, that they witnessed a growth on my liver about the size of a lemon. They took a couple biopsies, they removed about 1 liter of ascites fluid, and they would please like to keep me there for a couple of days for more testing. Yeah. I had been displaying no symptoms of any kind. I went to Puerto Rico on a vacation just 1 month earlier, and you look at pictures of me with my shirt off, and I almost had a six-pack. You didn't see anything going on in my liver. I had nothing going on at all. And so I was told this information by Dr. Sugiyama, wonderful man, and he could see that I was in shock. And he excused himself and he said, "Please excuse me." He understood that I needed some time to process this. "I'm going to be right out here sitting at my desk. When you are ready, when you have any questions, please call to me." And I allowed myself to bawl my face off, and I prayed my butt off for about a half an hour, getting it out. And I'm like, because I was in shock. I couldn't understand. And then when all the prayers were said and all the tears were shed, underneath all of it was this layer of saltiness. I don't know how else to describe it. Like the saltiness was there. And then underneath that, somehow was a deeper level of faith and trust that I never, ever even knew was even there that I even had. And I knew that it was because of what I had been depositing into my spiritual bank, my spiritual ATM. And I heard God's voice saying, "You're going to be okay, Charles. You've been making deposits. You've been making deposits. You're going to need to, you're going to want to. And thank God you can make withdrawals now in the forms of faith and showing up." I'm a shower-upper. I've been taught to be a shower-upper. You're going to need to show up at one painful appointment after another, after another, after another. You're going to be going through chemotherapy and stuff that's going to affect your body far more than even the cancer ever did. And you're going to go to Los Angeles and you're going to become a life mastery consultant. You're going to go to London and you're going to become a certified hypnotherapist, and you're going to develop your Divine Spark coaching business, and it's going to turn into an international business, which it all has happened because I've been making one little deposit at a time. And sometimes those deposits can be big. This coming October 8th, I'll be celebrating 16 years of sobriety. You want to talk about some deposits into my spiritual ATM, right? I may be flying to Southern Wisconsin to help my mother move from Southern Wisconsin back to Northern Illinois, where she's closer to my nephew. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's some that's some deposits in the spiritual ATM. So for everybody watching this video, start off doing this with a notebook, with a journal, with not your computer. I don't like doing journaling. I don't suggest keeping track of your spiritual ATM on your computer. If you do want to do it on a notepad and then transfer that onto your computer, fine. But listen, I have folders and I keep I'm a writing kind of a guy, and so I have my folders and I have my computer. So there's power in the pen, and I'm sure that's something you all know too. Keep track of your deposits in your spiritual ATM, especially now. If you have prayed today, if you have journaled, if you have done a daily, if you have read a daily reflection book, if you have worked, had a coaching with Judy, whatever it is, if you have done, you are making substantial deposits in your spiritual ATM. Then what you do with it then is every week you can develop your own sequence, your own time pattern. You'll know when, how often you want to check it out. And you can see like, wow, how am I doing? Wow. And I did, when I did my heart chakra, out of my head into my heart, and guide my thoughts, guide me. That's more deposits. Every single one of these deposits matters. And I promise you, as you keep doing this for another week, for another month, and for another year, you're going to look back on August 25th of 2020, and you are going to feel spiritually wealthy. You are going to feel a robustness in your energy and your spirit, because Judy, I can pretty much guarantee you that's what you felt and that's what you heard when you witnessed me at that training in LA 2.5 years ago, sitting in the dining room. That's what you observed. And the thing is, you were able to observe that because you've been making deposits in your spiritual ATM, but you just didn't call it that. But of course, you all know that when we call a thing, then we make it real. So you all know that, right? When we call a thing, then we make it real. If we call the anxiety or we call the cancer, if we call the thing a thing, then we make it real. So anytime we're talking about the cancer, the depression, the bankruptcy, the COVID, we never want to call it mine. We want to call it the. Because I will say, like, even with alcoholism, I don't call it my alcoholism, it's the. But I do say my recovery. I don't call it my cancer, it's the cancer. But I do call, everything that I want to claim ownership of, I will say mine. If you make that slight little shift from my or mine to the or it's going to have, that's another tool, actually. I didn't even think about that I was going to offer that shifting from my and mine, my stress, my overwhelming, whatever it is, my debt. It's the debt. Mm-hmm. It's the debt. You're going to notice a big difference as well. And so if you are going through a challenge and you've been keeping track of your deposits in your spiritual ATM, you can roll your spiritual sleeves up. And if God or the universe is saying, okay, all right, Anne, all right, Beverly, how badly do you want this? Judy, how badly do you want this? You're going to be like, I'm going to roll my spiritual sleeves up and I'm going to show you what I'm made of. I got this. I know how to show up. And if something really great comes along, you know that you've made your deposits and because you've got a solid foundation that you can build on. If something great comes along and you haven't been making your deposits in your spiritual ATM, you know that there's that part of you, that self-doubt part of you, that wounded little boy or girl part of you that's going to convince you that you can't handle that thing, that offer, that proposal, that idea. You don't have what it takes, right? So so start and continue making those deposits into your spiritual ATM. And that's something that I've been doing for a long time.
Wowzer. Okay. I'm crying.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm tearing up. And I love that. It's just like, when the eyes leak, the heart's wide open.
Oh, I'm such a crybaby. I get, because I have such a deep and compassionate heart, and I feel, yeah.
That's so important. Well, thank you so much, Charles. I'll put on all your info and all that other fun stuff. I'm going to put it on the page. And I just want to tie a bow around this with homework, life work. Okay. So all of you out there in Paradigm Shifter land, here's what I would love to have you do. Remembering your spiritual bank account, your work affects the entire globe. Yes.
Yeah.
So I would love to have you comment below what your gold nuggets were, what you are committed to doing. If you were listening, one of the things Charles was saying, it's a commitment. It's not a one-time deal, a commitment. And if you are, out, brave thinkers, brave paradigm shifters, what is it that you will be committing to do for the next week? Not necessarily the rest of your life, but for week, one day at a time. It could be the breathing Charles talked about. It could be the spiritual bank account. Go through. And another thing, share this. Teach what you just learned to your children, to your mom. I love it. We have millennials in here, Charles. I love millennials. We got grandmas in here. Don't mess with grandmas. We have the school teachers in here. What if you school teachers that are doing school totally differently than we've ever done it? What if this was one little bitty part of a lesson? What if? So I want to thank you, Charles. I can't, from the bottom of my heart. And until next week, dream big, dream bold, accomplish brilliantly. Judy Matejcek, Life Master Consultant, world-class paradigm shifter. We thank you and bless you, Charles West.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you all.